This video is gonna be about the gerontophile agenda, as I've been talking about for a while, that I also recently realized is really similar to what I like to call Sixth Commandment culture / red rum is evil. Why do people act like being 18 changes everything? This makes me so... Wait, I'm trying to find a way to not curse. I don't even know. Some people say it's not a curse word, but this, I don't know, pees me off so badly. A few examples. If a 16 and an 18-year-old are dating, it's totally inappropriate. And if an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old are dating, it's completely fine. I do get what they mean by this. Now, 18, well, really a lot of things depend on the person, to be honest. 18 and 20 wouldn't be bad, but I do get what they mean. But what I more often would say is 16 and 18 is bad, 17 and 18 is bad, 17 and 19 is supposedly bad, 17 and 20 is supposedly bad, but then 18 and 75, well, they're both grown. That's how people are. That's actually a better example that shows the absurdity of all of this. If a 16-year-old is friends with an adult, real adult, 25 plus, which actually adolescence used to be mostly considered 9 and 25, but it actually extends till at least 32. But I mean, of course, with the friendship, depending on what's meant by that, age doesn't really matter anyways. But I just wanted to throw that in there as usual. And then, of course, as I mentioned in plenty of videos, due to the gerontophile agenda, they're trying to act like adolescence is only like up to 17 or up to 16 to further this idea, and keep lowering it to further this idea that kids or youth dating each other is being a quote-unquote pedo, and even that youth are more grown than they really are, which does nothing but actually enable the real sexual predatory agenda. People are so brainwashed for some reason. There's a big maturity difference between a 16-year-old and a 25-year-old. That brings a big disparity in relatability. It makes you think, why would that, say, 27-year-old be friends with that 16-year-old? Are they family or something otherwise? This is such a problematic agenda, because one of the things about it, I always mention how throughout my life, hold up, I'm trying to get into my sleeping bag because I feel like this spot is such a bad and uncomfortable recording spot. I forgot to record this somewhere else because I really didn't even want to do this right here. But anyhow, what was I saying? Oh yeah, what these people don't realize is that this gerontophile agenda mindset that they're pushing enables actual sexual predatory stuff. And of course, as I've said in plenty of videos, majority of the people that are pushing this agenda are essayed women who have been getting essayed their whole life and in and out of bad relationships, actual sexual predators. And also I could say now, I could throw this in, I don't think I mentioned this that much before, youth who are brainwashed into this agenda and actually believe it and think that they're some type of social justice warrior for calling their friends chomos, not even chomos, quote-unquote pedos, a word that's always used wrong, for dating and befriending people their own age. And that's especially due to what I'm going to go into, which is, the fake moral crisis, minor crisis uproar that I've been talking about for months, especially with this multiple decades old info about diddler, the files, etc., old stuff that people still really don't believe, and are just making it into their own entertainment and making it into something about feminism and politics, people trying to make it about politics. They keep people in the left-right mind herding agenda, stuff like that. Still, generally, nobody really caring, and people just like using these situations to make themselves seem like some type of social justice warrior for a bunch of stuff that everybody should have already known anyways. And still, like, I mean, I've been talking about the minor crisis for a while. Like, even with, I was gonna go into the Nova situation, but I don't even want to go somewhere else. And honestly, I feel like I could go into a lot of stuff, but I don't really want to get way too somewhere else, because I have so many videos about how all this is bullcrap. But anywho, oh yeah, but to go back to my thing I was going into earlier and don't know what I was about to say. I've always been around people older, more so talk to older people, and then not to mention all the isolating situations that I'm in. And me personally, I've never been the one to fall into the whole talking to chomos thing till this day, because like right now I'm in the perfect situation for something like that, but luckily that's just never appealed to me, to be honest. I understand how people fall into it and why, but it's just not for me, and it's just not something that I would see myself doing. But at the end of the day, to get to the point, this like idea, no, hold up, oh my gosh, I'm screwing this all up. I was supposed to say a while back that people in this agenda are projecting. Why do you even have to make a friendship or somebody be an associate or whatever you want to call it sexual in the first place? Everything doesn't have to be sexual. And like lawyers have always told people, technically there are no laws against who you can date, just against who you can have sex with, and that's not even that true. And still, I constantly have gone into this thing for months on end now about how people do not seem to understand the difference between age of consent, age of majority, and legal adult laws. Those are three different things, and the last two can kind of blur into each other, but age of consent and the legal adult laws are two different things, and the word pedo has nothing to do with age 18 or who is or isn't 18. In fact, the definition is being attracted to people who haven't even started puberty yet, which would be under 8 for girls. If you really want to lump both genders together, you could say maybe under 12, at least under 10, that depends on the person really, but at least under like 10 to 12, maybe 8 to 9. That can depend on where you live and what all chemicals are in the food and stuff that's screwing people up and making people have early puberty. But at the end of the day, like, I was even just talking to someone the other day, and they pretty much had said like that they thought the word pedo meant like having sex with minors or dating minors, and that's not what that word means whatsoever. And the only thing that all this minor bullcrap does, which for one, the term minor, as I always say and have always talked about since before the abuse evidence channels, it's literally made for abusers by abusers to normalize abuse. And then they can say, oh, well, this is happening to you because you're a quote-unquote minor, you're a quote-unquote child. And ageism doesn't stop till at least 30, so you're going to keep hearing different excuses about how you're bad, you don't honor your parents, you need to listen to your parents or whoever the abuser is and stuff like that. But anywho, the only reason they've had people running around screaming minor for months on end now, which is absolutely stupid, is because they want pretty much not the Hegelian dialect, but order out of chaos. No. Yeah, that one, but it's something else. Hold up. I could even say divide and conquer, but yeah, I think it is order out of chaos and Hegelian dialect, actually. They want to create uproar and then give society their solution. You're running around screaming minor, completely baseless bullcrap term that allows perversion up to a certain extent, and not really because age of consent is well below 18, it always has been. But you're screaming minor so that way they can give their solution, them being like the higher ups, which is going to be to make the age even lower. Which the age of consent is already somewhere from 14 to 16. And globally, it's mostly 14 to 16. But in some places, it was 8, but I know in like a couple places they changed that, And then the second lowest that comes to mind is 12, but generally worldwide it's 14 to 16. And you are technically a man or woman somewhere from 13 to 16. And I know people are going to be mad about that, but the thing is, you're a child, or a quote-unquote child, whatever that really means, until if a 10-year-old, no, in fact, if a 9-year-old is sexually acting out and they're running around sexually assaulting people, quote-unquote, most likely due to their own trauma or just some generational issue, people are going to say, oh, well, they're not a child, they need to be charged as an adult, and then when they go to prison, they're going to learn why you can't do this, and that to people. You're a child until. All that child stuff is bullcrap. The minor thing is just generally, obviously bullcrap if you're not brainwashed. It does nothing but keep people in bad situations. And you're not even going to be seen any different when you're not a quote-unquote minor. But anywho, what was the last thing I was going to say before I finished reading? Okay, yeah. So the last thing I was going to say with that is that none of the law stuff matters. The only thing that matters is I know, like, in the laws of Enoch, it said don't go into the youth and defile them. In the laws of Moses, it talked about how you shouldn't prostitute your daughter and a whole bunch of other stuff. This is something that's like been documented laws for forever and a day, always. Now, I could say the moral side is what matters, but I also know that the real, like, Greco-Roman meaning behind the word morals, which really can change and it can be one thing one minute, another thing another minute. That's really like Gentile, European type concept. But I know what people mean in modern times when they say morals. I could still say by like that meaning of the word, the moral side is what matters, not the laws, because at the end of the day, even 18 is whatever. And also another thing is that the legal adult age / age of majority varies in states and countries. Like, even in some states, like I think Mississippi is still like 21 technically, but worldwide it ranges from about 15 to 21. And yeah, so overall people should just date people in their age range, and the younger person can be the predator, which I've talked about that before as well. Anybody can be predatory, and this is one of the big issues in a hypersexual, sexually perverse society that wants to enable perversion of all types up to a certain extent. Like, relationships are not about getting with somebody because you want to marry them and you want to be with them for the rest of your life, work through issues together, have a life together, and raise kids, not just have a baby to terrorize them because you think it's cuter because you hate yourself and the other person is racist and you want to have a mixed baby fetish type thing going on, and you objectify the person. You just think that they're a good looking older or younger person, or they're a rich older or younger person. Like, all that objectification stuff is also a big part of the issue. It's all about perversion and using people, nothing real. So to finish reading, replying here from another ACC. True, but there's also a huge maturity difference between an 18-year-old and a 25-year-old. So why is that then appropriate? It's not like 16 and 18 is a huge maturity difference. Now, I don't even like all this maturity stuff, and one of the funny things is that these same people that'll start doing this weird maturity stuff, like in the reply, acting like an 18-year-old is so much more mature, these are the same types of people that if, like, somebody was to say or tell somebody, oh, you're mature for your age, they would start doing the whole, oh, you're a quote-unquote pedo, and only pedos tell people that they're mature for their age, and stupid stuff like that. They're these same people, and it's like this weird, like, I don't know, it's all just a bunch of bull crap. It's insane that, like, now anybody who has common sense is being labeled off as a quote-unquote pedo. It even makes you think about, in online spaces and even in person, especially when I was in Cali, I would have people like try to compare me to like the quote-unquote old racist conservative white man stereotype, and it's like, especially when it comes to the covert and subconscious racist white savior liberals in California, hearing them even go on their stupid fake anti-racism rants while having the color black and brown on the pride flag and all the other racist stuff that they do and say that they see nothing wrong with, is just like really annoying. But it's like, I'm saying things that are just true common sense things, like, do I have to be an old racist white man who's brainwashed into left right mind herding to have common sense? I hope not. Like, for example, making a statement saying something like the immigrants that were brought into the U.S. shouldn't have been brought to suffer and be worked to death in an already extremely overpopulated state like New York. Covert and subconscious racist white savior liberals will be like, oh my gosh, that's so racist and southern and conservative of you. You sound like an old racist white man. I sound like an old racist white man, whatever that really necessarily means, for saying the truth. And I did go to NY actually and witness a lot of that stuff, and like, those immigrants were extremely depressed. Many of them wanted to go back home, to be honest, and that could be its own video, which I think I do have videos about that from like over a year ago. But like, I remember when I was in Cali, all the go back to Mexico you niggers that I heard ever since my first day there. And even this one old racist white man who felt like he wasn't racist because he's a white savior liberal, which what people really seem to not get is that, like, white supremacy is programming that everybody's under. It has to actually be like something that you go into yourself and unprogram and deprogram. Even if you're a melanated person, which you'd be under the Williams syndrome house nigger program or field nigger, whatever, colorism, self-hatred that all melanated people have. Like the mongoloid, the people that be labeled off as mongoloids, like Mexicans, Asians, like especially like the stereotypical Indian or other Asian model citizens, these people that try really hard to be white adjacent, etc., etc. You'd have to unprogram the colonization and white supremacy programming. And also Caucasian people are just as brainwashed, and even more than others. Like, for example, the serpent CJ3Ws that are running around Africa pretending to be the people. And even, which they're the ones who ran the slave trade, so technically, quote-unquote white Americans are J3Ws. They really, even though they're Swedish, Irish, German, French, Russian, Turkish, Polish, Italian, etc., Greek, they really believe, because they've been taught this their whole life, that they are Northeast African people. Like, people, like I've said before, I've actually met these people personally. A lot of people are talking about the Rev 29 stuff, and woe to those who say that they are, what's and are not, but of the synagogue of Satan. There's that, but the thing is, these people are brainwashed from birth that they are these people. These Caucasian people really believe that they are Northeast African. They really believe that they have rights to the land. Now, of course, the higher-ups, especially when it comes to higher-ups that are actually Orthodox, they know that they're not the people. Their kids don't know that they're the people. The ones that you see every day, the ones that live in California, the ones that live in the South, etc., Portland, Washington, etc. Because people like always think about Orthodox. All of them aren't Orthodox. A lot of them are atheists and they're trans, and a lot of the Orthodox ones are trans too. But anywho, they really do believe this. This is programming. This is also why I typically would rather just date somebody that's the same exact ethnicity as me, but also isn't under the house nigger program and stuff. But overall, they're just more brainwashed in a lot of ways, and some certain sets of them are more brainwashed. That's the point I'm getting at. Because honestly, a lot of them are really nice people, but due to the brainwashing, there's also like a lot of racial stuff with that, which I've talked about before, even before the abuse evidence channels, because I had met a lot during that time. And so my point that I was about to get into, because I went on a rant, this white savior liberal dude had told me, when you say Arabs instead of Arabs, you sound like an old racist white man. And then he went on a rant about how I'm black like the car across the street. And then he started talking about how evil Asian and Chinese people are. Well, Chinese people are Asian, but he went on that rant and he was talking about like a whole bunch of bull crap after telling me that I sound like an old racist white man from the South. And then Californians, like, the division between the West Coast and especially the South, not even the whole East Coast, but the South, is really interesting. And not to mention white savior liberals, or just like these, well, yeah, those areas, they're so redlined that they've never seen a quote-unquote black person before. Like maybe some immigrant that probably is like African from whatever place, even if they're like dark skinned and they like come to the US and they label themselves off as white on the census. And maybe even like a couple people that have moved to their areas that are quote unquote black, but generally these like extremely liberal areas are so redlined they've never even seen a quote unquote black person, which is why the overt racist people in the South are the ones who will admit it anyways. They'll be like or the ones that know that they're racist, I'll say that. They'll be like, the reason why liberals aren't racist the reason why liberals aren't racist is because they've never seen a black person before and they never lived around them. If you look at the statistics of their areas, there are no black people there. So yeah. And I mentioned all of that because it goes into like these weird like projected bias, like manipulative mindsets and things that people say. And if you know, you know. I don't even know how else to put it. If you know, you know. The common agreement is that the average 18-year-old is mature enough for stuff like this alongside voting, gambling, etc. And so what is that supposed to mean? And then I see that like their user flare says old, so that's like, there's a lot I could say about that. And then this last comment said it changed everything for me, and it's like, in what way? Being able to like escape a bad situation, which even if you do that at like 21, 23, people will talk junk to you about how you shouldn't cut off your parents and you shouldn't leave and all that bull crap. But yeah, like, and it's like, I don't even understand how people can like pretend that this statement in the original post doesn't make any sense when it makes absolute sense. And it's like really unfortunate. And it's like, you see all the flares that say old, people that shouldn't even be in this group, I'm sure. But then when people come making posts about what was that in one of my first few paraphilia something playlist videos. Like there was this one post where this dude was talking about ciscon and pairs and all types of bull crap. And the people that come to our teenagers talking about some pedos, they deserve, what did they say? Just stupid stuff that shouldn't even be talked about in the group that's doing nothing but trying to normalize and enable bullcrap. But nobody has anything to say about that. And unfortunately, so many of the youth are brainwashed into the gerontophile agenda. But the same ones that are brainwashed into the gerontophile agenda, when a chomo comes and says, don't harm chomos, violence is bad and stuff like that, or be nice to chomos and stuff like that, they'll be like, well, yeah, they are humans and they do have a quote-unquote mental illness and all that stuff. And it's like, so you're okay with an actual chomo telling that they're a chomo, telling you to enable their chomoism and to talk to them and be nice to them, but you're the same kid that'll go on and rant about how an 18-year-old can't date a 17-year-old, and there's certain things that a quote-unquote adult can't say to a quote-unquote child, like a one-day difference is all that, when they're also probably both in the same grade and class and school and everything. And yeah, so it's like all messy. And of course, I have a recent gerontophile agenda video that really goes in what I've been talking about a lot, with making youth feel like they're quote-unquote pedos and giving youth POCD. And the thumbnail is some 13-year-old talking about how they've been getting called a quote-unquote pedo for dating a 12-year-old. And anywho, the last comment, I don't know about you guys, but there are some places with Romeo and Juliet laws that make sure a small age gap of usually 1 or 2 years aren't counted as being a quote-unquote pedo, because I don't really know if I can say that. Now, first of all, the word pedo is just always being used wrong anyway, so typically what people are talking about isn't actually something that falls under the actual like pedo word by definition. But this isn't even really that true when it comes to the Romeo and Juliet law thing. What really, as I've said before, even before I started talking about this, I've always talked about how I've known so many kids throughout my life till this day who have charges of quote-unquote CP, a term that really shouldn't exist anyways, for their own abuse. The kid victim gets charged for their own essay. They get charged and put on the sex offender registry for being manipulated or forced or whatever into selling their own pictures, or even of just like dating people their age. Like if they send pictures, or supposedly send pictures of themselves or each other, and I don't even know if this is coming out right, but if two kids like send nudes, they can be charged, put on the sex offender registry, and charged as a offender against a kid for dating somebody when there was no offense, and they are the person that they're being charged as offending against. They can get charged with distribution and creation of CP. And I've met so many girls that have been charged with that. And it's funny how it seems like this doesn't happen to boys. Like it just seems like it's just another way really to screw up, like traumatize the girls' lives and label them off as quote unquote hoes and stuff. But anywho, so that happens. And I've also mentioned before plenty of times, especially since I started talking about what I call the gerontophile agenda, how the age of consent was actually made to keep youth from dating each other, not the different things that people try to make it about when it comes to the minor crisis and the fake moral crisis that's going on, revolving around the decades-old files that people are now actually like somewhat, or well, I mean, a lot of people are talking about. People are like now starting to be like, oh, well, I guess it is true because now it's confirmed, but they're still trying to act like some things aren't true and some things aren't possible. It even makes me think about what Pastor Stephen Darby said in a video back in the 2010s or whatever, where he was like, people don't even understand how evil really is. People can't comprehend how evil really is. But that's a whole nother topic. The point is, people pretending that like very, very old news is like all of a sudden actually now real, and like it just happened, and like, oh, well, I didn't know about this. This is like very, very old news. And I'm not saying that to say that it doesn't matter now. I'm just saying that like it just shows how fake everything is. And like I said, I was talking to a girl a little while ago. She had even said that she sees how performative like predator catcher channels and stuff like that are. It's all bullcrap. And people do everything in the world but help actual victims because they know that helping actual victims of any age isn't legal, and that the laws are made for and by abusers. People always have thousands of different excuses. In fact, I forgot to mention, going back to the whole why would whatever, I can't even remember, whatever age be friends with a 25-year-old or whatever. Now, there's so much I could say about this that I've kind of already said, I hope I did, but this is another reason why people make up excuses for not wanting to help, mentor, or at least give advice and talk to people in bad situations, even ones who are 18 plus, because they don't want to be labeled off as a quote-unquote pedo, and that's going to be even worse if they're a guy, of course. But even for women, people say things like, well, I mean, I would let you live with me, or I would like help you with this, or help you get a bank account, or help give you a ride to work, or help enroll you in school or whatever. But you know, I mean, that's between you and your parents, and I don't want to get involved in that because like I don't want them to like try to act like I'm some weirdo and like I did something to you, and I don't want to be labeled off as a pedo or anything, so I just rather stay out of it. The gerontophile agenda also helps enable that. It helps it make things worse for people, the few people who actually will step up to the plate and try to like do the bare minimum at least for people in bad situations. Like for example, luckily since I'm quote unquote black, the police were never really going to care about me escaping my abuse. As I always talk about, unless like your parents are rich, it can pay a private investigator to look for you, or it can put like money on your head. Like if somebody puts out a missing persons report and says, if you turn this person in, I'll give you like $10,000 or something, unless they can do that, the police aren't going to look for you anyways. Your real risk is all the random people out there who will call 911 behind your back because, quote unquote, you're not safe, you need to be where you're supposed to be, or you're being bad and grown and stuff like that. And also what I like to call Let Me Help You Lunatics, which I have a whole playlist about. But anywho, since the police aren't going to look for you, oh yeah, due to that, like, I think I was going to say that, like, my SSN and all that stuff wasn't really going to be ran through whatever system to see if I was, like, using it for whatever. And so, I mentioned before, which apparently Astral isn't dead. I found that out, like, a little while ago. Well, a couple of days ago, pretty much. But he's still in, like, a horrible situation, but it's really confusing. Anywho, the 19-year-old who had helped me get a Cash App, which unfortunately they changed their rules now. And so now you have to be like 13 plus years older than somebody to get them a Cash App card, or account. But anyhow, most people wouldn't even be willing to do that because, of course, they're worried about, like, well, if you do get caught and then they find out or whatever, however they will find out, I'm going to be in trouble and I'm going to be made to seem like some type of bad guy, stuff like that. And it's like, if I wouldn't have, like, met the people I met in support groups, especially, like, the women who were, they range from 27 to 37, most of them, which, unfortunately, all of them were in their own really, really bad situations. Some of them are not still alive, I don't think, and that's, like, I wish I could have, like, done as much as I feel like they have done for me, for them, if that came out right. But, unfortunately, like, I wasn't able to do really much of anything, but I mean, we both could, like, listen to each other's, like, stories and stuff, but unfortunately, like, that went how that went. But anyhow, if it wasn't for them, like, I don't even know where I would even be at. Like, so many people, even who, not even just from support groups, it was, like, people from the abuse evidence channels who were, like, watching. It was a few. Most people, usually people wouldn't say anything. The most people ever said anything about and left comments was, like, on the videos of the dog abuse, because that's the only thing people cared about. But for the few people that did say something, like especially the dude from the Part 1 channel, who was the dude who originally told me to get on Reddit and to go to r/raised by narcissist. And sometimes that word is hard to pronounce, sometimes it's not. But yeah, that dude, like, that's, oh crap, that's like one example of the help that you can get from older people that you just, I mean, maybe I could have got that from somebody my age, but, like, I've never really gotten along or even really been around people my age. And then it's like, I'm always in, like, these not ideal situations, like right now. Like, most people, nobody wants their kid around the homeless person. I still, like I said, never really got along with them. And most of them make me nervous. A lot of people make me nervous, to be honest, so, but either way, if it wasn't for them, like, I just don't even know how to put it. Like, they helped me break down my abuse evidence videos. They helped me continue to get through the gaslighting to even get to the point of being able to get out of my situation. And, like, they just helped me with so many things. And, like, even when I was still in my abuse situation, my life was already like a repressed memory. I already couldn't remember any of my life. So I couldn't even describe all the things that those people helped me with. And these are random people off the internet who have been through or were going through the same thing as me, that would, like, help me go over my abuse evidence videos. And like even I still have, like, a good lump sum of them. Like, CPS only snitched about, well, I mean, they snitched about all of it, but I was able to get back into some of my stuff before the part 4 and up channel got deleted. And I still have, like, a lot of stuff that was saved that I never uploaded, but it was the Part 1 channel, the Part 3 that was deleted, my main email since age 10 that was compromised, that had a lot of, like, important stuff saved to it, a lot of important videos. But overall, like, oh yeah, I was saying that I still have a lot of those videos, like, a lot, and a lot of the thumbnails that I even still use till this day are from different things that people have said, comments on my evidence videos, things that people said that, like, I still remember till this day. Like, for example, I always quote the dude who said, when the mother is psychotic, they treat her children because that's how power works. I got really out of breath saying that. And then, what was the other one? Nobody's gonna effing save you. What was the other one? When, hold up. This one girl who was like, what did she say? I used to use a thumbnail. This has a thumbnail a lot, but it was something like, you know, those labels that they slap on people, there to dehumanize people and stuff like that. And then I was going through my evidence videos and I saw this one thumbnail where this lady was like, she had put a timestamp for like one of my videos, and she was like, I'm just gonna have to say an example from timestamp like 103 on up, your mom's just lying and manipulated. That was pretty funny. But she was like, after this point, your mom's just completely lying after that. And then it was the video where my older enabler sister was arguing with me for whatever reason and lying about our older scapegoat sister who got driven insane. She was lying about her getting essayed by our mom's husband. And that video, that was on the part 1 channel, some lady left a comment and she was like, I hate when people lie to my effing face like that, because she's obviously lying. And then what was the other thing? It was something else. Well, I mean, it was a lot of things. I don't know, I could literally just keep going for like a really, really long time. But I'm trying to think of like the key moments. And I have a screen recording of this video, which I don't even know why that dude even edited that bullcrap in there. Like, what did that even have to do with the Nova situation? Hold up. Okay, I thought I saw the police, but I don't know. But I had made a screen recording of this one video, and the dude had edited in this live stream or something of this lady talking about how she sleeps with a GUN under her pillow, so for in case she has to hoop her daughter, as I call it. And she was saying, I don't believe none of these kids' abuse stories. These kids are the devil, and they're all demons. And she was like, your kids are on the internet watching these videos, telling them stuff and telling them this. What I know abuser lingo. What she's saying is that due to the internet, people are finding out that they're being abused and that they're in narc abuse and other types of abuse situations and SA and etc. younger and younger. Like, they're no longer having to sit around and wonder, because if they have access to the internet, they're able to research what's actually going on. Which, well, let me not go into that because I'll be somewhere else. But anywho, there's also another thing that abusers will commonly say, which I think she said, but I can't really remember. But this makes me think about that, or that makes me think about this. And it's that people will say things like, your kids are getting on the internet talking to strange, weird people, and they're telling them things about you and trying to turn them against you. When abusers say stuff like that, what they really mean is that they're talking to people who actually give a crap about them, at least enough to tell them the truth and help them through whatever's going on and give them advice. That's what they really mean. But of course, there's always risk of people like this who are actually willing to step up to the plate and do what people are really supposed to be doing, getting called quote-unquote pedos. In fact, people say the bull crap, it takes a village to raise a child, or quote-unquote child, whatever that means. But when the village steps up to the plate, they're pedos, quote-unquote. So it's like, okay, what in the world? And then, of course, at the end of the day, nobody's ever going to do anything about actual sexual predators or really any type of abuse of anything, because one, people really don't care. It's all like a facade of social justice warrior bullcrap. People making it about prostitution and making it about women or girls, ignoring the men and boys and people of different age ranges. And people, of course, as I've said since I was 9 to 10 years old, if you don't believe in like Yahweh, Hashatan, the supernatural in general, and or you consider yourself a quote-unquote atheist or whatever, you do not and cannot believe the realities of actual higher level SRA, satanic ritual abuse, trafficking. And, I mean, of course, people don't care about the lower level branches anyways that even lead up to the higher level, because that's just where the poor, quote-unquote black, bad, crazy, quote-unquote retarded, etc. people go anyway, so nobody cares about that. But you definitely don't believe in higher level SRA of any form, because you don't believe in the spiritual side, and you don't believe that, like, people do what they do. You just don't believe in the ritual abuse. You're the same person that'll tell, like, the actual survivor, current abuse victim, that they're just quote-unquote mentally ill and need help, or they're lying, because you don't believe in the ritual side. In fact, I remember some years and years ago, well, this wasn't that long ago, but it's happened before, so yeah, some years and years ago, I've had people say things like, when you talk about SRA and MK Ultra and rituals and sodomy rituals and all that stuff, you make human trafficking sound like a joke. No, you make human trafficking sound like a joke, or you just don't believe in what actually goes on, and you don't really care. You're just one of those fake social justice warriors. If anything, maybe you believe in prostitution, but like higher level traf, and even lower level, it's not prostitution. Like, it's not some lady standing on the corner somewhere. That's not good either, but that's just not the same thing. Although, of course, all sexual rituals are sexual rituals, but that's still different from, like, higher level SRA at the end of the day. Although that can probably bleed into that, but still. And then it's like, but yeah, it's like, I mean, if you're willing to call people's real life experiences a joke, you don't care, and you never will care. You just care about whatever rhetoric or agenda or whatever that you want to push. I don't know, like, it's not coming out how I want it to. But another thing, what was the other thing with that? It was something else that I would say with that pretty often. Oh yeah, you have so much pride in wanting to pretend that the obvious supernatural realm doesn't exist, that you're willing to try to counteract and triumph over people's real life experiences to hold up your supposed quote-unquote atheism. And I don't know what else I was going to say with that, but now I'm actually reading the bullet points. So, at the top I put these fake cases, and when I say fake cases, I don't mean that none of the stuff happened. As I always say, I know this sounds weird anyways, but I've researched this stuff since I was like 6 to 7, but especially like 7 on up. And I know that all this stuff is real, and it always goes deeper than people even admit anyways. But when I say fake cases, I mean that, for one, there is really no trial. Nobody's going to go to jail for real. And also, it's just being used as a distraction. And it's a humiliation ritual, and it's really all about blackmail. The whole point of it is to be pretty much a warning to people who are down with them boys, and to let them know, you better do what we tell you to do. Like, I'm trying to think of an example that'll make it make sense. Now, of course, if you don't believe in this stuff, it's going to be whatever you anyways, but for example, let's say, well, they're about to take out Trump anyway, so I guess I can't even use him, but I'm trying to think of who else I can use. I can't even think of, like, a good example, but, like, pretty much, as we really start to roll into the beast system, they want people to be taking out, their roles that they were given. This is all about blackmail, to let people know, and if you go against what we tell you to do, we're going to expose you to, and we're going to embarrass you to. That's all this really is. That's what all this stuff is. Aside from the distraction part. It's really just to get people to get in line. That's all this is. Next bullet point. Perform live social... I already talked about... Oh, the performative. I've read that all wrong. Performative social justice warriors. Yeah, I talked about that. Oh, yeah. In the next bullet point. The files are now a moral standard. So, for example, somebody can say, quote-unquote, well, I beat my kids, but at least I don't eat them. The files are a moral standard. Now people can run around talking about the Steam dude and these other people and be like, well, I'm not doing what they're doing, so I'm still a quote-unquote good person. I'm still a quote-unquote nice person. I personally don't even like the good person, nice person stuff, and I know people feel like it's weird to not want to call yourself that, but honestly, I really try to steer away from that because there's a lot of stuff with that I really don't like. I feel like it's all just manipulating myself and others. I personally don't even like all that stuff, but I mean, people can say whatever, obviously, but for me, it's just not really for me, and I don't even know if that came out right, but overall, this is being used as a moral standard. And another thing I could throw in is that I've seen something somewhere, somebody talking about a book that some dude wrote about the age of consent and how it kept getting higher, and how it got so high to where, like, nobody could have kids and stuff like that, and nobody could date or anything, and that sounds really interesting, and like it could definitely be used for manipulative reasons, but it does make me think about the gerontophile agenda. But of course, the end goal of the gerontophile agenda, even though people that are in this think that they're combating quote-unquote pedos, but they're actually helping and working with quote-unquote pedos and real sexual predators. And that's the funny thing about it. So next, the bullet point. Well, no, because I've really already talked about this, but I guess I could still read this. Oh yeah, another comment that I wrote to the side as a bullet point. This one really stuck out to me as well. This comment where a lady was like, no one deserves to be talked to the way that people in that house talk to you. And that was one of the comments on one of my abuse evidence videos. Anywho, other bullet point. Sexualizing friendship. Without older friends, especially from support groups, I'd be dead. People sexualize in basic conversations is projecting. Convincing youth that there's such a big difference between one day and 17 and 18, and even in a wider range, because like really the difference depends on the person, which makes me think I forgot to talk about that with all the maturity bullcrap. Really, the term mature and childish is all so biased anyways, towards like, what does that even really mean? But depending on what you even consider being quote-unquote mature, that really just depends on the person, how they were born, and it can also depend on how they were raised, but it could just depend on the person, to be honest. Like, I mean, there's just so much I could say about that. Like, you can't even always really tell somebody in their teens and 20s apart, and it's a lot of bias with that, but the standard is also for boys to be more quote-unquote immature, so it's all just so messy, but there's a lot I could say about that. Overall, it just doesn't make sense. It's biased. Making you think that they're grown and should run off into the sunset with actual sexual predators once they turn 18. So pretty much the idea that, like, I've even seen somebody mention this actually, people being conditioned into believing that 18 is so much more grown than it really is. And like I said, it's still all weird because at the end of the day, people just don't know what they're talking about, since the AOC is still well below 18. And I forgot it's still on my predatory playlist, but a video that had many clips of people being targeted pretty much. But this one video where this dude was sexually harassing this girl in this gym, and he was trying to get with her, and she was like, first of all, I'm 17 or something like that, and then he was like, you need to respect your elders, and then she was like, now you want me to respect you? This isn't really word for word. And then he was like, well, 17 is legal, and that's the thing, 17 is legal, and that's the issue with all this AOC and minor stuff that people don't get, that the laws don't mean jack about. They don't mean jack pretty much. And it's like, I even talk about all the time the different weird sexual situations really on a daily basis, but especially when I was in Cali, like the people chasing me around asking me when are you going to turn 18 and all that stuff, and people just sitting around hoping and waiting, and every time they see me asking me if I'm 18 yet and stuff like that. And even the recent situation, well, honestly, I mean, this is pretty common, but especially one that really comes to mind, a recent situation with the dude that I mentioned in a recent video as well. one of those weird people. I feel like he would fit in Slab City, who runs around quoting Bible verses all day and is very obviously like really like deranged and stuff. And he just kept asking me if I was legal, and then this other dude started telling him how old he thinks I am, and then he's like, oh, well then that's good because that means blah 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 blah. So yeah, like, another thing with all this minor crisis stuff is that there's already so many people that feel like the age of consent is the age that gives consent, which means that they feel like, okay, once somebody's 16 plus or whatever, that means I can grape them. And yeah, so it's like, there's already so many issues with that. And then I don't even know, like, there's even a video that I could put in the description that I watched, and I had a lot of stuff to say about that. I know nobody cares what I have to say, but I had a lot of stuff to say about that, because it was just like all the 18 stuff, and like, you shouldn't be with anybody under 18, period. And it's like, well, first of all, who is you? And then it's like, would you get with an 18-year-old? Like, how old are you? And then it's like, it even makes me think back to that comment that I used as a thumbnail for one of the playlists, I believe, in a couple of videos, where this one person was like, is 18 a magic age? Because the original comment said, I'm pretty sure, I don't believe that somebody should have kids under 18. And it's like, well, I mean, aren't like a lot of people who are 18 who have like the stereotypical lifestyle, like, aren't they in like high school or something anyways, or school in general? So it's like, is that the standard? And I know, like, it's just so much weird stuff, like how people have just gone back and forth about what is a kid, what isn't a kid, what's a quote-unquote child, what isn't a child, what's grown, what's not grown. It's just a bunch of flippy-floppy weird mess. And I can also throw in something that I've been reminded about once again since being back in quote-unquote black in southern areas. The idea that any grown man that somebody sees me talking to, or even sees talking to me, even if I obviously don't want him to be talking to me, is my older boyfriend, and that I'm a quote-unquote fast and grown hoe and all types of stuff. Because at the end of the day, people can do this, like, fake moral panic, but people, like, a lot of them still don't really see victims as victims. They see people as, like, just fast and grown hoes, quote-unquote. And another thing with this is that so many people, they've just grown up getting essayed and taken advantage of, and getting kicked out for getting essayed and getting pregnant from getting essayed, even by relatives and teachers. And I mean, I even mentioned the whole situation with the racist Mexicans back in Cali that started making up all types of stories about me, even though I don't even look like I can get pregnant, to be honest. But they made up this whole story in their head that they felt like I got kicked out for getting pregnant or something. A whole bunch of weird stuff, but that makes me think about this as well. I already said that rather there much of a difference between 16 to 20 or or younger, older, maybe even like, I mean, I don't know, I feel like this is like really iffy, but this can definitely depend on the person. But I remember like seeing somebody say that they weren't much more mentally mature at 23 or something like that than they were at 14. And that still depends on like, what do you even mean by mature? Like working a job? Like, what does that even really mean? That's why I feel like nothing really matters but the what is and isn't illegal in the realm of the spirit, or what people would, I guess, now call the moral side, and put the laws to the side, because it's like, as I always say, any of these arguments can really go in any direction. Like, for example, the same stage of life. That is absolutely stupid. That can mean absolutely anything. And if you're not in the typical situation for somebody your age, then you're never going to be in the same stage of life, quote unquote, as somebody else your age. So you're always going to be made to feel like the bad guy, even if the person you're trying to get with is older than you, because they're in the typical quote-unquote kid situation. It's just a lot of stupid stuff with that. It doesn't make sense anyways. Anywho, all that depends on the person. I recently seen a vid where a guy was talking about turning 20, and he spoke on how legal adult age of majority is anywhere from 15 to 21 worldwide. And I also put in like a little note, remember, legal adult is different from age of consent, which can vary from 8 or 12, but mostly 14 to 16 years old. And that nothing changed since he became 20. So either he was mature from a young age, or he's developmentally delayed. Next bullet point. 16 years old. Oh yeah, the 16-year-olds and even younger, even older, that are convinced that the word quote-unquote pedo means anyone 18 plus, even though the diagnostic criteria for the pedo label starts at 16, but kids who aren't even teens yet get called this as well. Next bullet point. This fake moral quote-unquote pedo panic due to the files, which is decades old info, isn't helping anyone. Just giving people a low moral hierarchy barrier with higher do what thou wilt / good deeds outweigh the bad / YOLO / once saved always saved / feather and weight. All those things mean the same thing, but all those things, they all go into this. Now people have even, I don't even think I really put this how I really was trying to. Like, I think maybe I did, but I'm trying to make it make sense. Like, now there's pretty much people are like comparing their self to like these higher ups, like the whole eat the rich, it's the elites, even though the whole head is sick, leaders are only an extension of the people, etc. terms, which some of those are, the whole head is sick is definitely a biblical term, but it was said by Yah to true Yasharel. I'm pretty sure that was Old Testament, but either way, all this stuff goes hand in hand. But my point is that, like, now people are comparing themselves to the elites, and they're saying, well, at least I'm not eating my kids, even though it's been wait a minute, I'm choking. Even though it's been said for decades that the food is people, and the Heck 293, the makeup is babies, Red 40, etc., and people are still eating that stuff. So I mean, we are, but my point is that the files are like a standard now. Like, people are using that to like lower their moral barrier and lower their sin barrier, and be like, well, I can do this because at least I'm not doing that. That's all that really is. So it's not helping anybody, to make a long story short. I could also throw in Aleister Crowley's quote-unquote love is the law and the only law, which of course the love is the pretty much just sexual perversion, not any real love. And there's a lot I could say about that. I know I used to watch Tiffany Buckner a lot when I was younger, and she would say that for somebody to really love you, that's supposed to mean that they have God's heart for you, and if they don't love y'all, then they don't love you, stuff like that. But yeah, but the point is, like, even with the Christendom Christianity agenda, that flip around European hijacking perversion of paganism and polytheism, they always talk about the God is a love stuff, and that's honestly not any different from the flipped around Aleister Crowley stuff, because like, religion is a new world order, and it's all just like a bunch of fake flipped around doctrines, and a lot of stuff is just messed up there, but there is no like real love there. Like, there's a lot I could say about that, but that makes you think about this. I guess I meant to say that the other way around, but anywho, now more people can fake social justice warrior in the good or nice person, or the one who quote-unquote cares. I even had a convo a little while and already talked about that. And then people will never help real victims of anything, which I already said that. Ever since I already said that, hold up. So after the whole thing, like, because I'm just not reading the bullet points where I talked about how people will say that survivors are quote-unquote mentally ill because they don't believe in the SRA side. I mean, people, they don't even really believe in lower level prostitution, to be honest, but I wrote, "You're so prideful. You expect the obvious things you refuse to believe to cancel out other people's lives and existence and real life experiences." Like, it makes you think about replacement theory as well, but I feel like that's kind of rude to even compare the two, because I know that, like, people, I don't believe in the BLM stuff anyways. I already know the agenda behind BLM and all the fake racial events in the news, but you're never going to hear about real stuff, the Freemason, Trayvon Martin bullcrap and stuff like that. But I was going to say, maybe I still should, because I feel like pretty much like the cognitive dissonance, the bias in people, even though these are different situations, it's still all pretty similar. So, like replacement theory, people in the Christian church believe that they replaced true Yasharel. There's those, and then there's the people, which typically, still the people that believe that they replace the supposed J3Ws that believe in replacement theory. They still don't believe in, like, the true Yasharel, but there's also the people that do believe that, like, the supposed J3Ws are still quote-unquote God's chosen, but of course, due to the racial programming and the racism, they still don't believe that true Yasharel is true Yasharel, so, like, they're still sending millions of dollars a year to a bunch of Swedish, Irish, German, Italian, Russian, Polish, Turkish, etc. people running around Africa dying of melanoma. They're still sending money to them for them to use it to traffic their own kids even. So, like, that biased. They either completely disregard the supposed quote-unquote God's chosen, or they admit that they're still God's chosen people, but they won't admit who the people actually are because of their racism and their racial programming and what they rather believe. Like, people are just, everything is about manipulation, which I'm thinking about making a video about that in general, about how everything is about manipulation. People talk about the Hegelian dialectic. People talk about, what's the other thing? Order out of chaos, divide and conquer. They talk about the 48 Laws of Power, I think it's called, the other supposed quote-unquote Illuminati books. They talk about the alchemy, stuff like that. But everything really is about manipulation and trauma. Like, it really is. But anywho, to finish this off, the last thing, I kind of already talked about this, but I also put, you see these situations as simple prostitution, maybe even of just girls and women. And you also see the situations just the issue of quote-unquote pedos. Like, all of this abuse, like, all abuse is a ritual, all sex and sexual stuff is a ritual, but, like, purposely doing rituals on people for power and for whatever else isn't just the issue of sexuality or supposed sexuality. It's deeper than even that. The issue isn't even just quote-unquote pedos. And then, like, people trying to make it about feminism and stuff with the whole just girls and women. That's a big issue. That's always been an issue that I've always talked about, because I've never liked the bias stuff with, like, males and females and none of that stuff. But I've always mentioned, because one of the first things I learned about when I was, like, studying MK Ultra and hypersexuality agenda and cartoons and subliminal messages and stuff and TRAF is NAMBLA, the North American Man Boy Love Association. And one of the things about it is that goes back to Greco-Roman stuff. Like, you literally, it was considered a rites of passage for a boy or a young man who was like 16 or younger to be essayed by an older man to become a man. It was like a rites of passage. It was like something that was seen as like something that had to be done pretty much. And it's like, people, they even consider boys to be called quote-unquote toys because you can do more with a boy than you can a girl. And of course, it's not even just about, like, younger people, it's older people as well. Like, and then also the fact that, I mean, just like with homelessness, it happens young, and then you get stuck. Like, you don't just get out of these situations when you become a quote-unquote adult, somewhere from 15 to 21. That's not how any of this stuff works. And I've talked about before how, like, in these older street kid prostitution, lower level pros documentaries, they'll talk about how, like, once the person turns 18, they can't legally force them to go back home, which are forcing them to go back home to be essayed by family anyways, but they can't force them to go back home, even though they're being really not even prostituted or whatever. They're being kidnapped and trapped and manipulated. But once they're 18, since they're a legal adult, now they're supposedly agreeing to be trafficked, so now their excuse is that since they really didn't want to help or do anything anyways, now, oh, well, we can't do anything because they're a legal adult. But they always have an excuse. People, like I always say, especially in my zombie/why people are after you playlist, I talk about the whole agenda, which is very much demonic, of how people treat you the same in every bad situation, but they have no excuse to treat you whatever type of way, or they have no excuse to treat you bad. And it's just like that. Like, the medical system and law enforcement they have an excuse to treat you bad at one age or in one situation, and they're gonna have a new excuse in the next situation. And that's pretty much how things go. And I can make a whole video about that, especially with the medical system. But anywho, to joke about bad situations are just entertainment. Oh yeah, people's bad situations are just entertainment to joke about and eat popcorn to. And I was even, like, I guess I can consider it a debate, but I don't even really like to consider stuff that. But I was even, like, having, I guess, what I could consider a quote-unquote debate about this in, like, some comment section where somebody was like, well, we have to make jokes about it. People have to joke about it because pretty much it's talking about how people, they're trying to cope and they're scared and they don't really want to, they want to turn a blind eye. A bunch of stupid bull crap. I even remember, like, in maybe 2024, or it was either, like, Halloween 2024 or Halloween 2025. I was in Cali. I was, vending with this lady. And her and this, dude, they were, like, he had came up to her booth or whatever, and they were, like, making jokes about the whole however many bottles of baby oil bull crap. And I'm like, trafficking of anybody and of kids and anybody isn't funny. And then of course the dude was like, well, I don't want to talk about that. Okay, but you brought it up. You guys are the ones joking about it. And then people are talking about we have to make jokes to cope. You have to make jokes to cope with somebody else's abuse that you see as entertainment, and it's something that's not really real anyways. Like, I mean, I could get, like, I talk about, like, the humor coping mechanism and, like, me and people I know joking about our own situations, but people just have a lot of stupid excuses, pretty much. Other people's situations is just entertainment. And, like, this person's really talking about, like, how people are just trying to cope, and that doesn't mean that they don't have sympathy and empathy when they laugh about other people's situations and stuff like that. Just a bunch of bull crap. And, yeah, and then it's like, I mean, shoot, it just sounds so, like, it sounds so, I don't even know the word for it, talking about you have to make jokes about other people's murders to cope with. I don't even know what in the world, it's just so stupid. But anywho, next bullet point, many people still call it rumors. They make it about political left-right mind hurting. I already said all that. Oh yeah, ABORTION, they make it about that. And whatever else to fit their agenda or what they want to believe or make it about to make themselves feel better. Next bullet point, or last bullet point, most of these people believe in what I like to call the gerontophile agenda. Oh crap. I was getting bit by something. Sixth commandment culture, as I call it. And that youth rights is bad. And they also believe the whole thing where, like, I mean, I can only say but so much about it, but, like, for example, you're in your own bad situation. You're doing harm reduction by helping other people, like, other kicked out people, for example. You're helping them, like, get through being a homeless youth, people are gonna say, oh, well, that's kidnapping and that's supposed to trafficking and that's harboring a minor. Or even if you're a minor, they'll be like, well, you're enticing other quote-unquote minors to run away and different stupid stuff like that. People really don't want real help to be done. People don't want people helping each other. People don't even want people helping themselves because they've been brainwashed into believing that help is bad, quote-unquote violence is bad, supposed violence, harm reduction for people in bad situations, runaways, kicked out, etc. is bad. It's illegal, stuff like that. And so that was pretty much it.